Hi guys, I have my blue light glasses on because lately looking at screens definitely hurts my eyes, but I'm excited to read today's chapter. This chapter is full of so many answers, but at the same time, those answers bring so many more questions. But this chapter is filled with light and excitement, beauty, and some surprises. Some of the components in this book that aren't fully answered by the end of the book were meant to play into book 2 and book 3. Unfortunately, I'm not sure when those books are going to happen, but I think it's a lot of fun for the reader to be able to imagine on their own how that might all play out and what some of these things mean. Anyways, we're about to travel through time and space. Are you ready? Let's get reading. Chapter 20, Through Space and Time. Taking her hand into his, Ezra lifted Celeste to her feet. Was this a dream? If it was, Celeste hoped that she would never awaken. Ezra smiled as if he had just read her mind. His face was loving, calm, and assuring, yet his eyes wielded great power, so intense that Celeste could feel a rush of unexplainable energy course through her veins when she gazed into them. The way he stood gave off an aura of immense authority and a reverence for respect. Something was happening to Celeste, some sort of strange and miraculous physical change. She looked down at her feet and realized that they were no longer touching the ground. Yet it felt as though she were standing on some kind of solid surface. The light around them intensified, growing rapidly brighter until everything around them was completely obscured by its brilliance. The familiar lake surrounding had vanished, and everything was dazzling white. "What's happening?" Celeste wondered, unable to properly convey her thoughts through such a limited language of words. Soon, this will become familiar to you, Celeste, but for now, it will all seem new. Realizing Ezra had not moved his lips, Celeste wondered how it was that he had just spoken to her. His voice radiated inside of her like a thought that she could feel. She wasn't hearing his voice with her physical ears. She was feeling it inside her body as it consumed her. This was incredible. In what seemed like a flash of a second, they were standing in a green pasture. Celeste could feel the soft grass beneath her feet, and the beautiful flowers were singing. A smile permeated Celeste's face as it all came back to memory. She turned to see the sparkling pool of water and the people walking all about in colorful robes. Could it be? Was this her dream? Yes, you have visited this place in your dreams, but you were here even a time before that. Turning her eyes to Ezra, it all became clear. She had been here before, with him. As that thought came into her mind, she noticed Ezra's clothing change from a white linen shirt and pants to a magnificent robe, his brown hair now a stunning lustrous white. It was the guide from her dream. The guide had been Ezra. "You were the guide," she said. "Yes, I brought you here before to prepare you." "Prepare me for what?" "I can't wait to tell you, but before I explain, there's something I want to show you." He took her hand, and as they walked forward at a normal pace, everything around them flashed by as if they had been traveling at a speed of 300 miles per hour. The colors and lights, which should have become a blur, were miraculously vivid and clear, down to the tiniest detail. No matter how fast they traveled, Celeste was able to enjoy every bit of scenery along the way. There were beautiful structures all around of what seemed like a glorious city. Prestigious buildings and houses made from materials Celeste had never seen before lined the golden paved streets. Parks and courtyards with exquisite gardens and grand statues were pretty abundant. After having passed through miles and miles of space, they reached their destination in what seemed like only a few seconds. There in front of her stood an immensely long and spacious building, containing magnificent arches, windows of various shapes, and finely sculpted ornamentation like she had never seen before. It was all made of one solid stone that reminded her of a fiery opal. Beautiful gold and violet veins ran through the stone like a precious type of marble. The walls seemed to be alive as the colors in the stone moved about, morphing into different shapes and images, all wondrous to behold. Ezra opened the massive door, which must have been at least 20 feet tall. Celeste noticed that the door contained no joint or seams. It was all made from one solid piece of wood. Lovely depictions of people, flowers, and animals were carved all throughout. They approached an entryway where Celeste noticed a modest amount of fine furniture and decor adorning the halls. "Do you know where we are?" Ezra asked, excitedly awaiting her response. Just then a warm tingling sensation poured over Celeste as she smiled with delight. Yes, I do. I'm home." Tears of joy ran down her face as she ran her fingers along the walls. "This is where I lived before I was born. I was raised here. I learned here. I grew up here." Memories flashed through her mind of her former childhood from a former life. This was better than any moment she had ever experienced on earth. It was difficult to believe she was really here again. "Your room is right through that door." Ezra pointed the way. "Yes, I remember," she excitedly replied. Without any hesitation, she sprang through the door, eager to bask in the comforting surroundings of a place she knew all too well. This was the room she had spent eternities in. Objects she had once treasured sat timelessly on tables and shelves. Everything was exactly how she remembered it. The blue walls seemed to smile. The sheer white curtains elegantly hung with pride. It was as though the entire room was happy to see her, as each object radiated love and affection towards her very presence of being there. It was then Celeste could hear the distant voices of deep, loving conversations and laughter. She remembered her family. Brothers and sisters, a mother and father, had all gathered in this room many times with her before. Where were they now? "Don't worry, Celeste. You will see them again soon. The time isn't right for you to be with them now, but I couldn't resist allowing you this moment to recall a time and place so special and dear to you." "Thank you, Ezra. This means so much." "Celeste, we have to go now, but it won't be long before you come back. There's another place I'd like to show you. Take my hand." In an instant, they were standing in a field of tiny purple flowers, with a large tree centered in the middle. The tree seemed far away, but suddenly they were standing right in front of it. The field was surrounded by tall green trees and rolling hills. Tiny children were running around, happily playing games while singing and giggling. One of them, a blonde-haired boy with bright green eyes, came running over to Celeste. He wrapped his arms around her legs and hugged them tightly before running to Ezra and hiding behind his legs, peeking around the side with a playful smile. "This is Ethan. He's excited to see you." Celeste looked down at Ethan, who was still hiding behind Ezra, giggling and peeking. "Hi, Ethan. It's so nice to meet you," Celeste said as she bent down and stretched out her hand. The little boy reached out, took her hand, and ran into her arms. His eyes were so luminous and adoring. There was something about him that spoke to her soul. He was special. After giving her a kiss on the cheek, he turned around and ran back towards the other children who were playing under the tree. "This is a wonderful place. Should I remember it?" Suddenly, Celeste's eyes were opened. Everything came back to her. The tree, the fields of purple, rolling hills. This was the place where she turned and looked at Ezra, who was smiling with joy. "You and I," she paused. "Yes, this is where we said our goodbyes." He took her hand tightly in his, and for the first time they embraced. Realizing that actually they had hugged many, many times before, Celeste laughed as she pressed her face against Ezra's chest. Her love for him was strong, stronger and more powerful than any emotion she had ever experienced on earth. How could she ever go back to that place? This is where she wanted to stay, forever. The memory of that final moment when Celeste realized it was her time to leave played out before her like a movie on a screen. She saw herself sitting next to Ezra, leaning her head on his shoulder, promising him that she would return with wonderful stories to share. A look of sadness came over her face as she saw herself realizing that leaving meant losing the memory of everything here. She was nervous, a little anxious, and excited to go and do the things she had agreed to do. She had happily accepted the challenges that awaited her. Ezra had already fulfilled his assignment and was offering words of encouragement and advice that were drawn from his own personal experiences. The image faded, but the memory was strong. As their embrace broke, Ezra hung tightly onto her hand, and quickly they sped off to their special place. Just over the hill was a spectacular waterfall that ran into a pool of aqua-colored water. There were breathtaking trees full of bright yellow flowers that smelled like a sweet and fragrant jar of rich honey. Celeste remembered this place very well. "I brought you here when the accident happened, and since that time you have visited this place only in your dreams. I wanted to validate these experiences by bringing you here during a waking moment. When you return, someday you will know this was all real, not just a dream." "But I don't want to return. Can't I stay here with you?" "Celeste, your work on Earth is just getting started. There is so much left for you to do." As Celeste held on to Ezra's hand, she understood everything clearly that he conveyed to her. Not only could she receive his thoughts into her mind, but she could see them how he did. It all made sense. There was no confusion. "Will I remember all of this after I go back?" "When you are on Earth in your physical body, the knowledge and memory of you and I will be taken away and protected. This moment we are having right now is sacred and will be forgotten. However, everything will one day be restored to you in its proper place and time. Will you stay with me when I go back?" "Celeste, I am with you more often than you know." Right before her, a foggy mist unraveled like a scroll unfolding. There before her eyes, images and scenes from her life on Earth began to materialize. She saw herself as a 7-year-old girl screaming at her brother as that brown van turned the corner and struck him. She remembered the helplessness and guilt that she felt. Those overwhelming feelings began to arise again as she watched the scene play out. As soon as she saw the calming man come over to help, those feelings of sadness and guilt were suddenly lifted as she realized it was Ezra. The scene quickly changed to the night of her accident. She saw herself at home with the pills in her hand. Then the music turned on in the kitchen, giving her the idea to leave. It was Ezra who turned that music on. She saw herself driving up the snowy hill, white knuckles on the wheel and mascara running down her cheeks. Those feelings of desperation and heaviness again felt so fresh. Then she saw the strange young man on the side of the road in the plaid short-sleeved shirt. She watched herself pull over and let him in. She saw the peace come over her as she looked into his eyes. Again, it was Ezra. She watched as she dropped him off at the elderly lady's home. Ezra had said he was staying with a friend. It was then Celeste realized that she wasn't the only person under Ezra's stewardship. There were many people on the earth that Ezra helped in times of need, this woman being one of them. Celeste watched as the elderly woman knelt at her bedside. That night, alone, sad, and feeling unloved. Losing her will to live, she prayed for someone to stop by or call, just for some human connection. Ezra had guided Celeste to the lady's home and then to her door. Celeste realized that the lady had even invited her in, but in her own world of mixed emotions, she didn't even notice at the time and missed out on a beautiful opportunity for two broken people to build each other up. Celeste watched as she walked back to her car and then saw how Ezra had stayed with the woman all through the night, influencing her dreams while placing thoughts of happiness and love into her mind. The scene again changed. She watched as Ezra rode along with her in the car to her first appointment with Dr. Kramer. He placed thoughts of encouragement into her mind, giving her the courage to go through with the appointment. She watched as he sat with her through the entire appointment, influencing both she and Dr. Kramer's conversation. Then, as she left the appointment, she watched as Ezra stood around her, warding off the dark shadow that approached her in the hall. Ezra had protected her. The scene then changed to the night of the concert with Wes. This was a night when she began to have feelings again for him. She watched as the loud music blared around her and the lights lit up the room. She saw herself fall to the ground as the darkness encompassed her. She watched as Wes and his friends stood over her in a panic. Then a man emerged from the crowd, saying that he had medical experience. She watched as he revived her and waited by her side, holding her hand until the paramedics arrived, then quietly disappearing back into the crowd. It was now the night of her birthday. She watched as she stood there by the park bench, watching as Ezra sat, comforting the distraught woman. Celeste realized that the woman had just found out earlier that day that she had cancer. She had come to the carnival to take her mind off of it, as well as to ponder on how she would deliver the news to her family. She checked her phone messages, which is how she received the news that she was losing her apartment unless she could pay the overdue rent and accumulating late fees that came to $900 by the next morning. Low on hope, her heart sank as she realized she was now going to be homeless. It was then Ezra came to her side, saying, "Darla, you are loved, and you will not lose your apartment." The surprised woman asked him who he was and how he knew her name, to which he replied, "Actually, I'm an old friend, but I'm pretty sure you don't remember me." The woman apologized for not remembering him, but was so struck by his statement that she didn't try to ask how he knew her. Ezra gave her some loving words, and she smiled. Before he walked away, he said, "I'm positive you need this more than I do." He then handed her $900 in cash. Celeste watched as time sped forward, and she was riding on the carousel with Ezra. She could see Oakley and Wes on the Ferris wheel, and she could see what they were seeing. Celeste indeed was alone. They could not see Ezra sitting there with her. Celeste watched as Ezra walked away and met up with other people whom he helped. She saw the night that she and Wes went to the home of the truck driver who had hit her. It was Ezra who had put that idea into Wes's mind. She could see him in the back seat of the car, coaxing Wes along. The night of the party soon came up. Celeste saw the frightening moment in the bathroom when she was surrounded by the dark shadow. There, next to her, Ezra had appeared, fighting off the darkness. He pulled her to her feet and helped her out of the bathroom. It really was him standing by that tree in the backyard. He was watching out for her. Scene after scene continued on up until her current place in time. The scroll then rolled up and the scenes were gone. Celeste turned to Ezra, feeling a deeper understanding and love for him. All of this time, he had been with her, even when she thought she was completely alone. Just as much as I have been there to help you, so has the opposition. Every time that you set out to do something good and life-changing, it attacks. It lures you into moments of weakness, sorrow, pain, and confusion. It knows your purpose, and it wants to alter your course, get you off the path. Celeste, you must do all that you can to fight it and not give in. "Are you my guardian angel?" she asked. Ezra laughed as he delighted in Celeste's childlike enthusiasm. "Yes, I guess you could call it that. After all you did for me when I lived on Earth, how could I pass up a chance to return the favor?" "You mean I was—" "Yes, you were my guardian angel. I know it was one heck of a job." This was all so amazing. If only she had this knowledge during her life, it wouldn't have been so hard to endure. Yes, but the beauty of it is in the way you grow from not knowing. The experiences you go through that seem so difficult really are for your benefit. She forgot that Ezra knew her thoughts. "Ezra, why is it that not everyone can see you when you are around me? Only those who have the eyes to see will see." Instantly, she knew that seeing was based upon a person's faith. The slightest amount of doubt could close a person's eyes. Wes and Oakley had let doubt overtake their faith. The thought then came to her that if Ezra wanted to be seen by everyone, he could, such as the interview he gave on TV. That act of rescue and the interview would be a benefit to many who would see it, and he knew that. If it supported the cause, he could be visible to anyone when he needed. "Celeste, time is running out, and there is something important that I need to tell you. You see, long ago, you made a decision to come to the earth at this time. You agreed to do some very important work, but distractions and obstacles have interfered along the way. The opposing force has increased in size and numbers against you, and they are determined to see that you fail. But I have been sent to help you fulfill your purpose, and it will be accomplished." The way that Ezra spoke to her made her believe that she could fulfill whatever assignment given to her. With him at her side, nothing seemed impossible. "Please tell me, what is my purpose?" A blissful expression lit up on Ezra's face, and it was clear that he was thrilled to be able to answer her question. "Celeste, you are going to change the world." "How will I do that alone?" "You won't be alone. Celeste, we can't be together on Earth, but I love you more than you'll ever understand in this life. I'll always be watching and waiting for you. Your future is glorious, and the things that are in store for you are worth every trial and challenge you are about to face. I look forward to the day when I will be allowed to have you forever by my side. Until then, I need you to trust and have faith. What if something happens and I mess things up? If I can't remember you and all of this, how will I make the right choices? I don't want to lose you. Celeste, when you return to your physical state, you won't remember any of this. It's important that you still have your agency and you choose of your own free will to do the things that you have been asked to do. If you were allowed to remember everything, then your agency would be altered. You would choose everything that is good and right because you would know for a surety of the outcome. The knowledge must be your choice, something you choose to believe. You see, your earthly life is a test to see what you will choose without a perfect knowledge of what is right and true. You have to be tested to learn who you really are and what you are really made of. If you remain faithful, the reward will be immense. Now, there will be times along the way when you will be allowed to remember whatever is necessary to help you fulfill your purpose. In dark moments when you lose sight of your goal, you will be granted tender mercies of memory to help you find strength and the will to go on. I've made special arrangements, and when the time is right, we'll be together again. Until then, there's no need to worry or fear. It will all work out if you have faith. I won't let you down, Ezra. Celeste smiled at the beautiful being that stood next to her. He was more than amazing. He was incredible. She would cherish this moment for as long as she was allowed to enjoy it and remember it. Now, I saved the best for last. There's one final place I would like to take you before you go back. Ezra's eyes lit up with excitement as he again took her hand. In a flash, they were transported to a quaint park surrounded by sparkling fountains of water, white benches made of stone, and trees covered in leaves of a color her earthly eyes had never seen before. It was stunning. A little stone pathway led behind a little stone wall with ivy crawling up it. It reminded Celeste of a charming scene from a fairy tale. Suddenly, a group of people came running down the pathway, shouting Celeste's name with praises of joy and excitement. She recognized them as distant relatives and old friends from her life before Earth. They were so happy to see her. And she was just as happy to see them. As they embraced and laughed together, it became much more difficult for Celeste to want to leave this place. It felt so much like home. The conversation soon grew quiet as the crowd parted and a hush fell over the group. Celeste looked up and saw someone coming towards her. It was Adam! She ran to him and jumped into his arms. He twirled her around as tears of joy fell from their eyes. This was the best surprise she could have ever hoped for. Wearing the outfit he had on the day of his death, Celeste realized he had shown himself this way to help her recognize him and to help her feel comfortable. Celeste, I'm so proud of you. You are the glue that will keep the family together. Mom and Dad are making small changes, but they still need your help. I need you to tell them that my death was an accident. Dad really needs to hear that more than anything right now. I'm sorry I haven't told them. I promised to go back and let them both know. Oh, Adam, we all miss you so much. I'm close by, Celeste. Mom and Dad are my top priority right now, but you have been kept in good hands. He turned and smiled at Ezra as Ezra winked. Adam, I don't always feel you around me, and I worry that I've lost you for good sometimes. Celeste, remember the day when you lost your bracelet and you called out to me to help you find it? Yes, I do. You were right when you wondered if it had been me who guided you to it. Oh, Adam, I knew it was you. Your faith is strong, and because of that, you're going to accomplish many great and wonderful things. I know there is an important work for me to do, but I really miss you, Adam, and I wish I could stay here with you forever. That time will come soon enough. Mom and Dad need you. Don't worry about me. You all keep me very busy in addition to what I'm doing over here. What do they have you doing? Learning. Lots of learning. The education here is better than any university on earth. Anything you want to know, you can know. It comes so easy and quick. Remember how bad I was at chemistry? Celeste laughed as she recalled the time that Adam's science project exploded in 9th grade chemistry class. The red fizzy solution shot all over the classroom, earning him an immediate D on the assignment. Yes, how could I forget? Well, it's one of my favorite subjects now. You're definitely not the Adam I remember. I am, just with some added improvements. Celeste laughed as she looked around at the large group of family and friends surrounding her and happily listened and watched she and her brother. Celeste, Ezra stepped forward, it's time to go back. The longer you stay here, the harder it will be for you to return. This place felt so wonderful. Celeste couldn't remember the last time she had been this happy. The last thing she wanted to do was go back to her life. How could she ever enjoy it when comparing it to here? Remember, Celeste, your earthly mind will not recall all of this. If it did, you wouldn't want to stay on Earth for very long. For that reason, you will be allowed only to remember what is necessary to aid you on your journey. It will come in bits and pieces when the timing is right. The fear of forgetting this place saddened Celeste. It was such a beautiful world, and she had such an amazing experience. She wanted to always treasure it in her heart. Bye, Adam. I love you. She wrapped her arms around him one last time, squeezing him as tight as she could. I love you too, Peaches. Now go get to work. He squeezed her back and smiled as she began drifting farther away from him. She would miss him a lot, but knowing that he was busy and happy with what he was doing somehow made it easier to say goodbye. Ezra took her hand, and in an instant they were soaring through galaxies as they zipped past stars and planets. Celeste had the understanding that in order to accomplish this, they were traveling faster than the speed of light. "Where are we going?" she asked. "I decided to take the long way back. Thought you would enjoy this," Ezra responded with a wink. This was space. Celeste couldn't believe she was seeing it from this perspective. It was all around her. Stunning comets, swirling masses of breathtaking colors, glittering balls of light. It was more magnificent than any picture or movie. There ahead of her, she could see the earth. What looked like a dirty brown tennis ball in comparison to what she had just seen became larger and larger the closer they approached. She didn't want this experience to end, but she could feel the pull of the earth calling her back, as if beckoning her to remember her important work that would take place there. It was as if the earth itself knew her and knew the good she was going to do. It lovingly welcomed her as she descended below the atmosphere, plummeting closer and closer to land. "I'll see you soon, Celeste. Be strong." "No, don't leave me." Before Celeste could finish her plea, she was back. The memory of where she had been was taken, and just as if no time had passed at all, Celeste sat up staring at the ground where she had just seen the most frightening image disappear. Something terrible had manifested itself to her just seconds ago, but instead of feeling frightened and doomed, she felt calm, relaxed, and protected. All she could think about was how wrong she had been to doubt Wes and judge her mother. Doubt and negative thoughts seemed to invite darkness into her life, something she needed to eliminate. With a heart suddenly full of love and compassion, she picked herself up off the ground and ran as fast as her legs could carry her, until she had run all the way home. That's it. Join me next week as we read Chapter 21, Pie in the Sky.